Hi and welcome to sallyhughesbeauty.com. Today's video is about brows. I have done a video on brows in the past, but I am still asked for another one quite a lot. So I thought I'd have a quick refresher on how to look after brows. So I think brows are massively important. I think that anybody is capable of giving good brows, so to speak, and they really frame the face. They're brilliant if you've got glasses to have a really strong brow because your glasses are completely symmetrical. So to have some symmetry in your brows just really looks nice and pulled together. If you have overplucked your brows, you can also fill them in, and I think overplucked brows can be really aging, so therefore if you fill in your brows that can be a very youthful look. And also, apart from anything, just a strong brow looks cool, it looks groomed, it looks really sophisticated. It allows you to really scrimp on eye makeup. Quite often a filled in brow and some mascara is enough to make you look really neat and groomed and pulled together. So where to start? I suppose the first place I would start is brow growth serums. So there are things like Rapid Lash that people have been using for a few years on their lashes. There is now another one called Rapid Brow, which works very well. It's exactly the same technology. They definitely work, in my experience. The only problem with them is that sometimes people are allergic to them. I happen to be somebody who is allergic to Rapid Lash and other lash serums I've tried. However, if you're not allergic to them, which most people seem to not be, then go ahead. They definitely work, and they can be extremely helpful if your brows are a bit sparse and overplucked. If your brows are so overplucked that they're a lost cause, or if you've undergone chemotherapy or you suffer from alopecia, or anything more permanent where your brows are not going to grow back, or at least not for a long time, you have various semi-permanent and permanent options. Semi-permanent makeup is basically a polite way of saying tattooing. You can go, there are many specialist tattoo artists who just do brow treatments where they effectively just tattoo new brows on for you, so you'll have them forevermore. Or you can go for one of the less permanent options like the Browhaus Brow Resurrection. There's a feature on that coming up where they tattoo on each brow lash individually. Which means that although they don't last as long because they're very, very fine, sparse lines, they do look really, really natural, and may be a good investment if you're somebody who really wants your brows to look as natural as possible, but you don't have any actual hair growing there. It's a brilliant, brilliant treatment. However, if you do have some brow to play with, I'm going to show you how I do mine. There are various looks that you can give your brow. The first one is you just get some clear gel and you just stroke the brow through with the gel. And brow gel is basically hair gel in a mascara wand. There's absolutely no reason to spend loads of money, just get a cheap one. And the reason I say get a cheap one is that you want to be able to throw it away after about 6 weeks because they become absolutely disgusting. They get full of face powder, eyeshadow and so on, and they become murky and cloudy and they're just a bit gross. So you want to be able to throw it in the bin without feeling like you've wasted your money. So get one for a couple of quid from Boots. Miss Sporty do a good one, Collection 2000 do a good one. You really don't need an expensive one because it is simply hair gel. You can also do that, by the way. You can take an old mascara wand and put some hair gel in it. That works fine. Or you can get a coloured brow gel. These are more expensive. This one is by Terry, and that's what I have in my brows at the moment. So a tinted brow gel darkens the hair as well as grooms them, so you kind of get two jobs for the price of one. And that's all I've done at the moment. I've just stroked through a coloured brow gel. The other thing you can do is darken them with a pencil or powder. I am going to show you a pencil of sorts first. I'll maybe do one brow with a pencil and then the other one with powder to show you the difference. So pencils by and large can be a bit harsh and you really need to know what you're doing unless you buy a sort of soft crayon type. Now this one is by Tom Ford, and I appreciate Tom Ford is not cheap, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that it's the best because I happen to think it is. It's a soft crayon, it's got a sort of slanted calligraphy type nib. And the reason I love it so much is because, look, it deposits very, very little colour. It's really, really subtle, which means you'll never get a harsh line. A note about colour. When you choose colour for your brow product, whether it's a crayon like this or a powder, which I'll show you in a sec, you always want quite a flat, cold colour. Even if you have the warmest hair colour, so you could have bright red hair, sort of really, really warm, kind of titian coloured hair, whether you have a lot of warmth in your skin. However pale you are, however dark you are, you want a flat, cold colour. If you look at anybody's natural brow colour, it will be quite a flat, cold colour. So the moment you bring in warm makeup onto your brows, it immediately looks a bit wiggy and dyed. To look as natural as possible, you want quite a murky sort of a colour. So if you're a blonde, you want a sort of slightly greyish taupe colour. If you're a brunette, you want a sort of flat, murky, muddy brown. If you have red hair, you want a flat, sort of sludgy tan colour. You never ever want any orange or red in the colour at all in order for it to look natural. So this one's by Tom Ford. I have dark brows, and so I've chosen Espresso, which is the darkest colour. So to fill them in, I tend to put my hand on my chin to give me a kind of anchor, and then working in short feathery strokes, you are filling in the brow, and you only want to go up to here where your arch is. Your arch might be here, might be there, but wherever it peaks is where you stop. And you are just filling in the shape you've got. If you are very sparse and you don't have much going on at all, this is where a crayon like this really helps, because you can colour in your skin, and providing it's a good match, it will look like brown. So, for example, I had my brows threaded recently. For the first time in years, I didn't go to the woman who normally threads my brows, Daxita at Atherton Cox, because she was on holiday, so I went somewhere else, and they screwed it up and they removed hairs here, leaving me with a little bald patch temporarily. So I have something that I want to fake. So I filled in the bald patch there until it grows back. So that's what you're doing. When you have done enough feathery strokes where you're happy with the darkness, you're happy with the coverage, when you get to the top here, you are going down, but you're going down in thinner strokes, and you're being a bit more precise. Because that is the bit that shows up the most, because you have less hair there. So lots of kind of dense strokes up, but then quite slow, precise strokes going down on the thinner part of the brow. I should say that even if this part of your brow is thin, it's still the same because you want it to look thick, so that's why you're doing those strokes. But here you always want this bit to be quite thin, so that's when you're doing longer, more definite strokes. Okay, so that is one side. This Tom Ford one happens to have a brow brush on the other side, but you can buy them cheaply as a separate thing. And you can just comb through just to make sure that there are no gaps. And that's one filled in brow. When you're doing brows on the move, these crayons and pencils are an absolute godsend because they're little, you don't need to carry brushes with you, and they're just quick for the train or the bus or wherever, or your desk or wherever you're doing makeup. If you're at home and you're getting ready to go out to a party, you've got a bit more space to kind of spread out. In that case, I would always use a powder. Powders look the most natural, in my opinion, and you get more control. There is much less likelihood of error. The brow powder I use, that I use in pretty much all photographs you see of me, is Christian brow powder. It's the most disgusting packaging in the world, and I apologise. I appreciate how ugly it is. However, it's so wasteful as well. It's enormous for no reason. However, the product inside, which I wish you could remove, is fantastic. I first discovered this when I was interviewing a plastic surgeon about reconstruction after breast cancer. I was writing a piece on it, and she had some in her office, and she recommended it for people who'd lost their brows for medical reasons, as I mentioned earlier. But I find that this works brilliantly for me as well. The reason it works so well is the colours are really natural. They come in loads of different colours and they all have that cold flatness that I talked about earlier. They're really easy to apply and brilliantly, they don't fade throughout the day. I find lots of brow powders, especially when people use eyeshadow, they're just a bit soft for brows and they tend to fall off and flake throughout the day, whereas this sucker absolutely does not do that. It stays put. So I love it, and it doesn't come off until you wash it off in the shower the following morning. Your brows are still on when you do your cleanse at night. Even if you slept in this, it would still be perfect in the morning. So for this, I use a brush. It comes with a brush in the packaging, which is not bad. It's not bad actually, but I prefer to use my own. This, I have loads of brow brushes in my brush collection, but I always come back to this one. This one is by Space NK, and the reason I love it, I've had it for years and it's in a right state. It's all stubby and matted and a bit splayed, and I find it works perfectly for brows where you don't want a really perfect line, you want something a bit less defined. My brows are going to look uneven after this because I've obviously got crayon on one and I'm going to do powder on the other, but you should see what I mean. So you take your brush, I like an angled brush as I say, quite stubby, and I personally prefer a synthetic bristle for brows just because you want a sort of stippling effect. You don't want a soft strokey effect. You want to kind of lay colour down. So I load up my brush with brow powder, really get plenty in the bristles, then tap off the excess, can always use that later. And same technique again, my wrist is going on my chin for anchorage. I might just brush through this one to get the shape I want so I know where to fill in. An old mascara wand or a toothbrush or whatever is fine for that. You don't need to buy one. Okay, same technique, short feathery strokes. And you can be quite rough because if you're too soft and strokey, you are just depositing colour onto the hairs, not onto the skin underneath. So all you're doing is darkening the brows you have, even if they're really sparse. You're not really filling them in. So you want to be quite insistent. Same again, up to the arch. Don't go down the slope again just yet until you finish this bit. And when you've got there and you're quite happy, get a bit more colour, the stuff you've tapped off. And then you come down in quite fluid strokes. See, my little finger is on the side of my eye, and that means that you're not moving your hand, you're just moving the brush. I constantly find when I meet women that where they go wrong with eye makeup is they try and do too much of the work themselves. Your brush is your friend. Your brush is there to do the job. So a bit like when you're chopping vegetables to cook, you shouldn't be moving your arm around. A good knife should just do that. The knife is doing the chopping, just like a makeup brush is doing the work. It should really pivot. You shouldn't be moving your arms around. The same thing applies to eyeliner, to any kind of precision work. The moment you start kind of moving your hand around, the margin for error is huge. If you just keep still and move the pencil, move the brush, just like that, rather than move your whole arm, that is when things get a whole lot neater. So that's the second brow on. If at any point you get kind of spillage of powder, just take a makeup brush and sweep it away. If you have very oily skin, you may find you just want to dip your brush in powder first because powder lifts powder if some powder has become stuck to the oil in your skin or your moisturiser or whatever. But generally a dry brush is fine. You can sweep it away. When you're completely happy that everything is filled in the way you want, then you can take your gel and lock it down. Whatever brow makeup you choose to use, I personally would always lock it down with gel. It just sticks to the powder and keeps it in place, rather than you having loose powder that can fall down and make a mess later on. See, this is what I mean. This is totally wrong for me. Let me just show you against the red so you can see the colour. This is totally wrong for me. It's the new NARS pencil, it's brilliant, but this colour would really suit a blonde. But if you look at it, it's practically grey. You know, it's a slightly greeny tinged grey. It's that flat coldness that you want and that looks most natural. So when you're happy with everything, lock it down with gel. And I personally, some makeup artists, I notice, put brows on first before they do shadow. I personally put brows on after I've done shadow, after I know I'm completely happy. And I also find that doing brows last kind of gives you an idea of how strong you want your brow to be. Sometimes if your eyes are mega strong, if you give yourself a really dark brow, then it feels too much. Other times I find that if I'm wearing quite a light makeup, I want my brows to look defined, but not too much of a big deal because I don't want to overshadow them. So I kind of think doing brows last kind of gives you a bit more of a sense of the bigger picture and how dark you want to go. I hope that makes sense. Please let me know in the comment section if you have any questions and I will try to answer them. Thanks very much. Bye.